Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive.
Quite frankly, I get most of my news from you.
Joan Esposito.
Y'all ready for this?
On WCPT 820.
There's been a lot of reporting about the Chicago public school system recently, what the unions are doing, what the school board, those running to be on the school board think, and who's endorsed them. And it's going to be this November. We will vote and have the first ever fully elected Chicago school board president. Stacy Davis Gates is head of the Chicago Teachers Union. She's here to talk with me. And in the interest of full disclosure, my daughter-in-law is a Chicago Public Schools teacher. She is a member of the Chicago Teachers Union. So I will not let that cloud my discussion with Stacy Davis Gates, but I thought it was something that I needed to tell you. Stacy, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, thank you for having me. And it won't cloud it. It will actually deepen the discussion, quite frankly.
Well, you know, I contact her all the time. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And I recently, Sun-Times, when did they report this? They reported this recently, that voters who have the chance in November to elect a Chicago school board president, at least a third of them have no idea who to vote for. They're not even sure they're going to vote. Let's talk about the candidates. And there is one candidate who is reputed to be the favorite of the teachers union, but there's been more reporting that that the unions, the big unions, are all supporting somebody different. It's been reported that the CTU wants Hilario Domínguez, SEIU has endorsed Jessica Biggs, and the Operating Engineers Local 150 is behind Jennifer Custer. Is that true? Is the Chicago Teachers Union behind Hilario Domínguez?
Well, let's start here. This is the first time in the history of the city that voters will have an opportunity to vote for a school board. As you know, you've covered schools for some time here in Chicago. You know that this is the first time ever where mom and dad get a choice at who gets to set policy and budget priorities for our school district. So for a moment, I think Chicagoans need to celebrate the opportunity that they have. You talk every day about the lack of democracy coming out of D.C. and the marginalization of our rights. Well, in Chicago, we are expanding democracy by allowing parents to have a say finally. So I'm excited for Chicago to do something that's very different than what's being done in a lot of places in our world right now. So I don't want us to drive past that. That's remarkable.
Well, the argument before, as I understood it, from the mayor's office was, you know, the mayor is going to be responsible for any criticism of what the Chicago public schools are doing. Therefore, the mayor should have the power to name some or all of the board and the president. Sort of like, you know, if you're going to make me take the blame, you ought to let me have some input. What do you think of that argument? Does it stand?
Well, the problem with that argument is that they never took the blame. You know, the teachers took it and the families took it and our students took it, but they never took the blame. They obfuscated. They played politics. They put millions of dollars into races to make it a non-issue. So the problem with that argument is that it never meted out into reality in terms of who took accountability, everyone but them, quite frankly. So that's thing one. I think thing two that we need to think about as this race is, you know, ensuing is what do we want our public schools to have? Right now, we have to have vision. For so long, we talk about it in a defensive way, what it doesn't have, what it doesn't do, but what does it need to do? What can it do? What can we wish it to do? And what does this opportunity give us an opportunity to do together? That's how we're looking at it at the Chicago Teachers Union. Look, I'll get to the horse race. I understand that. I'm not, you know, sidestepping it. And as a teacher, it is important for me to say that participating in this election is teaching a new skill to Chicagoans. And when teachers teach a new skill, we have to introduce it, we have to provide context, and we have to take our time with it. And we have to be very clear not to define it like the things that they've already been defined. The worst thing that could happen is that the school board election becomes like an automatic election or a mayoral election or a state rep or a state senator election. I don't want to talk to any candidate that's not also talking to me about issues that parents like me are experiencing. Transportation is a huge issue. I talk about this with my neighbors. I talk about this with my friends who have school-age children. We're struggling with that. My children talk about having off-campus lunch because they don't want the lunch in the schools. So this election, unlike many of the elections before us, it has to be very specific and local in what it speaks to and who it's speaking to. So that's the first thing, or the second thing that I want your listening audience to grasp. And finally, the horse race of it. I didn't get to choose anyone. Our House of Delegates, our highest governing body, they endorsed a slate of candidates, in fact, that represent the needs that they have in their school communities with the students that they are educating. And they're very, very excited about it.
You know, for those people who have maybe their kids are grown or they've never had any kids that are involved in either public or private schooling, what does a school board president do?
The school board president is leading the institution of public schooling here in this city with the superintendent of the Chicago Public Schools. It helps to set an agenda. It creates an opportunity for the community, for parents, for students, all stakeholders to convene and to decide. It creates the capacity for the board to take votes about things like budgets that have far-ranging impact. So the person is a convener, the person is a leader, and the person should have some understanding about how school works in the Chicago Public Schools. But even more importantly, they got to have an imagination. We think Hilario Domínguez has an imagination. He's a special education teacher. He is a Chicago Public School grad. He's someone who has attended underfunded schools. He's been a basketball coach, a track coach in our schools. He's someone who has had the experience and dimension as a Chicagoan, as a Chicago Public Schools teacher. So he knows the public school is a necessary institution in the city.
When it comes time to negotiate a new teacher's contract, will the new school board president be leading those negotiations with the union or just advising? How does that play out?
I don't know, because when I was able to sit at the table in 2019 and in 2024 and 2025, I never negotiated it with a school board member. I always negotiated it with the CEO and their designee at the table. So we have lawyers at the table, and we have senior level administrators from the district at the table. So that's who I've negotiated contracts with.
We need to take a break. I'm talking to Stacy Davis Gates, president of the Chicago Teachers Union. When we come back, I want to ask you about a lawsuit that the CTU filed against the Illinois Policy Institute. We are going to be right back after this.
Don't turn that dial. Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive, returns right now.
A fair balance where the facts come out.
On WCPT 820.
Chicago Teachers Union President Stacy Davis Gates is here. Illinois Playbook reported not that long ago that the CTU, the Chicago Teachers Union, was suing the Illinois Policy Institute, alleging toxic branding and defamatory claims about audits. Explain what motivated bringing this suit.
People have to tell the truth. We're all required to tell the truth. And so earlier this week, the CTU sued the IPI, the Liberty Justice Center in Austin Berg, for defamation. They've put a multi-million-dollar smear campaign together to make our union toxic, so that anything it touches becomes toxic. The IPI, it was started back in 2002 as a quote marketing firm hidden inside of a think tank. They've had the backing of Republican Governor Bruce Rauner, and they've done things that, have helped to add to the toxicity of how people are engaging in this moment. We're standing up for ourselves, our members, and more importantly, the truth. And, we just think that is an extension of us being a good citizen and making sure that the truth is on the record.
Where does that lawsuit stand right now?
Well, obviously we just filed it, and so the lawyers have it, and, the legal system takes the time that it takes.
Yeah, really.
And it does, and it does so because it intends to be deliberate and fair, and we need both deliberate and fair in all situations.
Okay, we'll wait and see how that one evolves. So let's go back, if you wouldn't mind for a minute, to go back to this race for school board president. One of the fears when this whole idea was discussed, that the people who are able to get seats on the school board and as the school board president would just be the people with the most money. Because, if you wanted the job, you'd really have to campaign. And so, of course, the people who have the most money can sometimes wield the most effective campaigns. Is that a concern for you?
I mean, it's a concern for me in terms of every election. It's not just school board elections, though it concerns me more acutely in school board elections. Look, we are in a political climate in this world, and in particular in this country, where billionaires are deciding who gets to, serve the public, and that's not okay. We think that elections are the cornerstone, one of the bedrocks to how we do America, and they matter. And it needs to be as inclusive as possible, and we need to defend and safeguard against, attacks on it. And one person being able to decide it by writing one check, we saw that here in Illinois before. Remember, Ken Griffin wrote like a $26 million check to torpedo fair tax campaign. Like, that's a bad idea. So the one person who would be in a position to pay more to kill this thing that would have helped people. You just saw in Michigan that there was a $70 million Senate race. How many medical debts could be canceled with $70 million? How many meals can be given to families who don't have SNAP benefits anymore without amount of money? It's growth, quite frankly, especially when there is such great and pronounced need in our world today.
Absolutely. This has been reported as an unusual event that the three major unions have all gotten behind different candidates to be board president. Why do you think that is? What is it that the SEIU wants in a candidate that is different from what the CTU wants?
Actually, I don't think that is unprecedented. It's not unprecedented. Actually, quite the contrary. Unions are routinely on different sides in different elections. This is not the first time. In fact, this happens quite frequently. So, I'm not clear on the benchmark that's being used in that particular analysis, because it is pretty common for unions to pick different candidates, especially in primaries. I've been doing this work for quite some time, and I can tell you that has been a part of my experience in this work. One of the things that I think is glaring in this moment as we are embarking on this new election cycle is that there's a lack of curiosity by those who are covering the election. They don't know anything about it. The most important people are the kids and the families that need the Chicago public schools to work. And all we're getting is political horse trading. separating and who's doing this and who's doing that. That's not why this particular election matters. This particular election matters. We should be talking to coaches and athletic directors, bus drivers and bus aides. We should be talking to grandparents who are shepherding another generation of kids through the Chicago public schools. We should be talking to black moms who live on the south side and the west side, who spend an inordinate amount of time in their cars because 50 schools closed back in 2013. Mm-hmm. These are the people who deserve the microphone and the amplification because they finally get to be the main character. Kids who want band in their school, kids who want state-of-the-art, athletic facilities in their schools. These are the people who deserve prime time, not the people who do this for the mayoral, not the people who do this for the automatic. I just think that people need to, take a deep breath, do a pause, reassess what this is and what it is not, and then comply to what is necessary to explore this new moment that I'm, quite frankly, humbled to participate in. What a pleasure it will be for coaches and athletic directors and band teachers to have conversations with their neighbors and with their families about what they need in their school communities. And then to hear school board candidates, receive that and give them strategies and ideas and platforms about how we're going to get there. That's what I want to talk about. I do not want to talk about this other mess. We have enough time for that. We're going to do that for the municipals.
So the biggest mess you're concerned about is the stuff that you just mentioned, and that's going to be where you put most of your attention in the near future.
Absolutely. The Chicago Teachers Union, and let me make this crystal clear to everyone, we're interested in making sure we win the debate on public education. Number one, that it has to be sustainable. That's why we're saying no to mayoral candidates who are coming in the room talking about cutting off 30% of the district. You got to say no to that. School closings are a failed endeavor by every measurement known to man. They are a failed endeavor. So we have to start talking about something else, right? So the 78th, the new community being planned adjacent to Chinatown right now, they're talking about that community, but you know what they're talking about in that community? A K-8 school and a 9th through 12th grade school. They're talking about building community with schools as the anchors. That's the discussion we get to have in this moment. How are the South Side and the West Side going to become revitalized? How do we keep young people and young families in the city? Well, probably by offering universal early childhood education, right? 3 years old, 4-year-olds, kindergarten students, making it available and at the local school. That would mean that instead of closing schools, we're building schools. I want to talk about transportation. Kids need bus stops, and we need kids not on the CTA, but on a yellow bus. And why are we contracting that out and doing a bad job at it? Mm-hmm. We have an opportunity to talk about public school, how it's sustainable, how the state, quite frankly, is failing us and not paying for it, not just here in Chicago, but across this state. 50,000 of my members in the Illinois Federation of Teachers are teaching at schools right now that are underfunded. Just teaching in schools. Those are districts all across the state. And only and about half of them are in districts outside of Chicago. So this idea that CPS is the only school being underfunded, that's not true. We have so many schools that are being underfunded in Illinois right now. There's so much coalition and common cause just on making sure that our funding mechanisms have the resources in them.
I know that my daughter-in-law has said she's been teaching at the same school, and she said that because of a lack of busing, they don't have as many students as they used to have because the busing is no longer available. And, that's something that people don't think about, that some people require that kind of help with transportation to get to a school, a quote unquote neighborhood school.
You are exactly right. Listen, that's why this election is different, because you actually get to solve for hyper-local issues, and you get to connect the dots to people like our governor, who right now is trying to make a decision on how he's going to address the funding shortages, right? Yes, it's going to be difficult, but it can't be any difficult than trying to get a deal with the McCaskey family. So I'm trying to figure out, how we do this together. Chicagoans are going to have an opportunity to have this big debate. God bless us for having that opportunity. I'm so pleased about that. So that's one thing. The second thing is that we're going to have to decide and clarify and commit to the sustainability of the Chicago public schools. And the governor is going to have to become a partner in that endeavor. And so that's the work right now. And everything we're doing at the Chicago Teachers Union is focused in on that. Our kids deserve everything and then some. We believe our union is a vehicle to obtaining some of that.
Well, Stacy, thank you so much. I know that you've got a really busy schedule, and we were kind of moving this interview all around to make sure we could get it on the air. Thank you for being flexible, and thank you for being here.
Well, listen, we should do this more often. I've missed talking to you and your membership. I referenced a couple of times that I do listen, but I haven't been able to talk to you. So let's figure out how to do this more regularly. I'm
going to tell you, be careful what you wish for, because we take those kinds of offers very seriously here. So you'll be getting one very soon. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you and enjoy your weekend.